Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. Today, we are discussing the Daredevil trailer that dropped earlier this week. But what's very interesting is we have a guest for a change. It's been a while since we've had a guest. It's been, I think, season one was the only time we had guests. I don't even think we had any in season 2 or season 3. But we have Tater here today. Tater, hello.
Hello, nice to meet you, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have a guest again. It's nice to have someone come in and talk about nerd stuff. It's always fun. I find that sometimes, it's fun having an episode like talking about what you think, but sometimes it's really nice to riff ideas off people and see what other people are kind of saying, especially if they have a little bit of a different opinion to that's kind of the whole point of the podcast. It's about, for what it's nerd comes from obviously for what it's worth. The idea like what is something worth? Is it actually as good as people say? Is it as bad as people say, etc.? So it's always good when I have a guest on. So thank you, Tater, for coming to me. Actually, Tater was like, I want to be on an episode. It was really nice. So thank you, Tater, for coming in today to do this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that's
I was listening and I was like, you know what? I really want to make some comments on this.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying some stuff. I'm like, oh, especially revisiting. I was introduced into the Skeleton Crew episode, and you know
Right.
what? I watched it and I liked. Same with your Creature. I think it was that double Creature Commandos and Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
You watched the first few episodes. And I was like, oh, I wonder if he's going to revisit this as a full series. And if not, I would love to talk about it. But today we're here to talk about the new Daredevil trailer.
Now, to be fair, I'll make a comment on that quick. Creature Commandos and Skeleton Crew, I did not pick back up. I have not touched those shows yet.
Oh.
And I think that's an interesting one because Skeleton Crew is actually, it's kind of went that way generally, right? There's been a comment recently that said that Skeleton Crew is the least watched Star Wars show, even though arguably some people are saying it's better in quality than a few of the others. And a lot of people like Creature Commandos as well. But for me personally, I think I enjoy James Gunn's work generally speaking, but I think his Gunnisms in this one weren't for me. And I will probably circle back around because I want to, the DCU is something I'm interested in. But I'm not there at the moment, if you know what I mean. So that's
Absolutely.
where that's kind of where I'm at with that one. So probably won't be revisiting those anytime soon, at least, unless there's some big news about season 2 or whatever, Usually what ends up happening is there's a season 2 announced and then I'll have to watch season 1 and season 2. I was actually trying to do that with Arcane, but I was too late. Season 2 is out and it was big and everyone was talking about it and I was going to watch it all and I didn't. I've now watched it all, but I hadn't at the time. So, but yes, we're here today to talk about Daredevil. Now, I did do a video a while back on Daredevil when there was a lot of the leaks about how the show was going to be originally. Because if you remember, Tater, they were talking about how it was going to be like sort of like a soft reboot of the Daredevil show. Yeah, and obviously they haven't gone down that route now. They've very much gone with this. I mean, if you didn't think it was confirmed before, looking at that trailer, it is the Netflix Daredevil continued, right? Like there's no room for doubt now.
Yes, absolutely. Same cast. And it looks like it's been a few years in between, like whenever they've ended.
Yeah.
I personally, over the last few days, have been watching through the entire series again.
Right.
I had forgotten they were hour-long episodes. So that was
they're quite long.
Well, and I had completely forgotten where they had left off with Bullseye because at the end of the season, spoiler alerts for
if you haven't watched it,
Daredevil seasons.
But if you haven't watched it, why are you here? But
I was gonna say that was 7 years ago. Come on, catch up.
Yeah.
But he was paralyzed and he was going through experimental surgery, and that was the little bonus teaser at the end, like Marvel used to do. And it was interesting to see because then the last shot, I literally watched this last night. And I was like, okay, this is something I got to talk about. Was his eyeball opening and there's just a bullseye inside of it.
Yes, which was very like. It's very. Do you know what that felt? Probably the most of like. The Daredevil show was very grounded, right? And I think that's something we're going to circle back to a few times in this in general. But I think that was the least grounded thing in that show, having a bullseye in his eye. Like it was very like it was very cheesy in that kind of like CW-esque superhero way. It felt very much more like that. But it's really good that he's back. Like let's talk about that. He's back in this because they could have very much left that plot on a like. you have Fisk, you have Punisher, and again, we'll kind of circle back to these characters as well, but you have those guys, right? So like you've got the pull, right? You've got the characters that are of interest to people, right? But then they've went and gone and added Benjamin Poindexter at Bullseye, and then also they've got a new villain in this season as well. So like there's a lot going on in this show for a show that, it's not going to be like super long. I think they reduced the episode count, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they did.
Yes, they did reduce the episode count, which is a bit disappointing, but unfortunately not unexpected when it comes to Disney / Marvel. Forgive me, Disney gods. I mean, whatever. But yeah, it is going to be interesting to see what they do with it, because the new villain, I have been looking all over and I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that White Tiger? Like I've always taken White Tiger to be a hero,
right?
An anti-hero, but still.
So that's interesting as well. I meant to mention White Tiger, but then there's Muse, who is the villain as well, right? So do you know much about Muse? I don't know loads, but he's an Inhuman in the comics. And he's like a sensory deprivation tank on legs, from what I've gathered. So essentially, he's the perfect foil for Daredevil. So this is one thing that I was going to circle back to, is the grounded comment, right? Because if he is an Inhuman in the show, he might not be, because they're kind of pivoting away from Inhumans generally. I mean, look at Miss Marvel, what they did there. They're making her a mutant, but which arguably, I'm two sides on that. Just as a tangent, and two sides on that, because the creator of Miss Marvel said they wanted her to be a mutant initially. So okay, but she was an Inhuman and has been an Inhuman for a while, and I actually quite like some of the Inhumans. So it's like a bittersweet thing, Anyway, back to the main point. Let's circle back. If they're doing an Inhuman character or making him more superpowered than perhaps we've seen with Daredevil before, you can really see how they're trying to push him into the MCU at large, right?
Right. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Well, and on top of that, you combine with what Netflix was originally trying to do in creating their own mini MCU, while also tying it. Like, I always loved that about the MCU Netflix shows, was that, we're going to call it The Event. Like, literally the first opening episode is talking about the Avengers and like the attack on New York, because you can't ignore a show set in New York.
Well, the whole premise of that first season is actually intrinsically tied to the Battle of New York, because all the building prices are lowering because of what's happened, and that's why Fisk can do what he's doing, right? So Fisk is a villain that only comes about because of what's happened, right? And I'm wondering, and this is something that I know we had that kind of Echo is obviously linked into Daredevil as well, the Echo show. And I know that Fisk kind of got the idea for running for mayor there, but there's a lot of stuff going on as regards the world politics in Marvel as well. If you look at Captain America, which is coming out, right? There's a lot of like American politics going on in that movie at the time, and the country's kind of destabilized to an extent because of all the superhero stuff going on, right? So I think that's what Fisk is again. It's intrinsic that Fisk is actually a villain that capitalizes on what other things are going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's always what he's been, because I don't know your introduction to Fisk as a character, but I was introduced to him as in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon show. There was no comic book shop around me, so I relied on some of the TV and movies that came out. And whenever I hear Fisk, like whenever this was introduced to me, I always just think, Smythe, go ahead and do this. Like the big guy who's in charge of everything, who has all the screens, who makes the plans, but who really takes advantage of every single loophole that he can to get away with everything, which he consistently did in the original show. And I'm looking forward to see how he's done that in the new show.
I'm not in sort of every media. Fisk is the kind of opportunist, right? Because like if you think of, I'm trying to think of the one, there's a comic actually, is it Chaos Reign or something like that? It's something along those lines, like a title, but he becomes mayor in that. He's the exact same thing he's doing here. That's where they've took it from. And in that comic, there's like loads of people going up against him. There's even a moment, what I found was really interesting is that there's these children of Kilgrave in that story, which interestingly linked to Jessica Jones, that have taken Fisk's memories away regards knowing Matt Murdock's identity, because he knows who Daredevil is, right? That's even shown in this trailer. So I'm wondering if they're going to try and adapt that in some way and try and make Daredevil anonymous again in some way.
I wonder about that, but the introduction to the actual scene of like, hey, it's not disagreeable to see you again.
Yeah,
like
that was weird, wasn't it?
Because I don't know what you remember from season 3 about why he hasn't come out and just revealed Daredevil's identity.
Yeah, that's in. Yeah, but what's also interesting is we're coming at Matt from a new angle, and what I'd heard is as a rumor. I don't know how true it is. There's going to be an episode or a flashback that regards Infinity War Endgame within the Daredevil level. You know what I mean? Like on the street level.
Very interesting.
It would be. Yeah. It would be 100%. But I want to know what line was crossed, because the line of the trailer is, I stopped being the vigilante because a line was crossed, and I'm really interested to know what that was. Was it him actually, the way that last fight with Fisk? Did he feel like he went too far? You know, but then
I'm willing to bet that, but because that was the line that he had crossed. But he said, "I'm also not going to ruin myself or my city for you. That would give you what you want."
But interestingly, though, and this is something that we have to take into account here, this show must then be set before She-Hulk, because obviously he shows up in that, and he is just quite literally fighting crime without any kind of concern, right? So it has to have happened before She-Hulk. So this takes us back. And this is what is frustrating me a little bit about Marvel at the moment. It feels like everything's filling in a gap still rather than moving forward. I think Captain America Brave New World is changing that a little bit, because that's moving a little bit more forward than back. Regards like Tiamat, the Celestial sticking out of the earth, which is people have been talking about for years. I've been saying this movie came out and no one talking about this big thing that's sticking out the earth. Well, it's there, you know. But,
right, because it used to be something that you would talk about in the next movie, or like I remember, and I loved Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Every single time that there was a new movie that came out, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., their next episode was always talking about, hey, there's the event in Norway. Hey, there's the event here. Here's the event there. Like, having an event on Earth has consequences, and in the show, I think like any number of things that they're going to bring up is going to be as a response to Fisk went to jail. Fisk went to jail, like repeatedly.
That's going to come up in the questioning, like if he, because the interesting thing is as well is he already mayor when this show starts, or is he campaigning to become mayor? And if he's campaigning to become mayor, that actually opens a lot of doors to add interesting storylines. Where is he being underhanded in doing so? Is Matt going to come out of retirement to try and stop him on both ends? You know what I mean? Like as a vigilante, but also sort of in the courts or in the court of public opinion, so to speak. You know, I think it's going to be interesting to see where this show starts and then, you know, how it runs towards its conclusion. Because the thing is as well, and this is the thing with Fisk, right? You don't get rid of Fisk.
No.
Because like he is the character who he's become, even though he is a Spidey villain as well, right? And obviously he's sort of tied to Spider-Man as much as he is to Daredevil. He's sort of intrinsically become the Daredevil villain now, right? Like Green Goblin is the Spider-Man villain, or Doc Ock, or whoever, you know. But Fisk is on the Spidey list, but he's not the Spidey villain. Where he is now the primo. It's like Red Skull for Captain America type thing, isn't it? You know. So if they get rid of him or remove his presence entirely, because they did what they did really well in season 2 of the original show, was have him be around and be a thorn in the side of the people, but he's in prison, you know?
Yes.
And so I want him to be around still after this, but at the same time, I mean, you can kind of go down the Batman route of like, you know, you can just keep putting them away and they'll get back out. But like at the same time, how often do you do Fisk before Fisk becomes samey in and of himself, if you know what I mean?
Yes, so, I actually wonder if they're going to defang him a little bit. He'll still be a consistent threat, but much like whenever, there was another Marvel character that actually ran for mayor of New York. I think it was actually Norman Osborn.
Yes, it was.
Okay, Spider-Man has to work with him consistently, and it's something that makes both of them an uneasy alliance. And I could see that being a piece of this, but I think the inclusion of like Frank Castle in here and White Tiger, I actually didn't know who the actor was that was playing White Tiger, but it's going to be interesting to see how all of our friends kind of come together, because as you know, once per season you got to kill off someone that we're going to love because it's still a drama.
Yeah, that's the concern, right? Because a lot of people are suggesting it's going to be Foggy. And I like, don't get me wrong, people are going to hate it, whoever it is, right? If you kill off Fisk, people are going to hate it. If you kill off Karen, people are going to hate it. If you kill off Foggy, you know, whoever you kill off will not work out well because someone will dislike it on some level, right? But you kind of have to do it because I think something's going to have to push Matt, and maybe this is what happens. Maybe it's what the line that's crossed is that someone kills Foggy and then Matt, or something like that, or maybe Foggy gets snapped, or something happened like that. I don't know, but a lot of people are suggesting that the way the trailer is like set out is that Foggy only really shows up in those first few clips and then doesn't thereafter. I don't know how true that is in reality to the show, of course, but
yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I could see them killing off Foggy. It'd be the easiest character to do, because the rest of your star-studded cast, just I can't imagine that they're going to want, like, especially John Bernthal. You know that Punisher can never die. He's just too damn stubborn, and also John Bernthal's perfect for that role.
There are also, I think there's also a rumor, which, you know, this is the thing, this is the frustration, right? It's the same thing that happened with Infinity War going into Spider-Man. Knowing there was already a Spider-Man movie coming out after Infinity War, you knew that Spidey was going to survive on some level at some point. I think that's the thing here, right? I think there's rumors that John Bernthal is going to be getting a new Punisher show. And if that's the case, well then, you know, he's going to get out of the season, so to speak, right? So, I mean, not that I expected Frank to be the one who was going to be killed anyway, but it takes out a little bit of stakes from the off if you know there's a project that they're going to show up in next, you know?
Right, and I do wonder about the option for a limited series with this, because if so, I could see Matt Murdock going the way much like he did with the Defenders, in terms of like he's going to go disappear and he's not going to be seen again, and like any number of these extra pieces where technically, you wrap up his whole story in season 3, but then you can include him in other stories. And with the inclusion in She-Hulk, I do wonder if that is going to actually be before or after, because with the inclusion of the Gold Mask especially, I think that will be an interesting, I don't know if he counts this as being a vigilante back as much as it is just, hey, I need to protect my client. The only way I can do this, no one knows me in LA. No one's going to report me. And in reality, nobody really knew that he was involved as a vigilante. So I could see this being like we kind of don't count that part.
or potentially, and the thing is, you know, this show, we know very little about the show in reality. You know, even this trailer didn't give loads away about what's happened. But you could have a show that very much picks up, like a lot of things do. They have 1 or 2 episodes that are set at the beginning and then they jump a year or something like that. You can have those things happen. But yeah, there is a few. The thing is with this Daredevil show, as opposed to a lot of other stuff that's come out, and I think this is why it's exciting again in a way, this show is actually connected to other things, right? It's connected to Echo. It's connected to the original Daredevil show. It's connected to She-Hulk. And, you know, eventually the potential of connecting to stuff like, is Jessica Jones coming back? Is Luke Cage coming back? Maybe not so much, like, I know a lot of people didn't love Danny Rand, the Iron Fist show, but again, I didn't mind it. So, like, you know,
I didn't think it was bad. It was just, I think it was poorly executed. It was the end tale of like, hey, Marvel's canceling our contract, like that level of like,
because I feel like season 2 got a lot better.
Yes. Oh, well, season 1 of a show really dictates how things are going to go.
Yeah.
And whenever you have a character who's like so desperately trying to reconnect with his old life and then realizing, no, I need to make a new life. That's, you're really starting with a season 0.5. Like you've got half a season in here, but you need that build up to actually get
backstory and all that extra stuff. And because it was more mystical than the other ones, I think that took more as well. I think a lot of people didn't, because, you know, you've got these 3 grounded characters and then you've got a character who's fighting a dragon to get powers. like Iron Fist is just not like he's a street level hero as regards what he does, but in terms of his powers, he's anything but, like.
And I think on top of that, like I love the actor. I think he did great work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was just the hipster that everybody fucking hates. And so that added into the dislike for the show.
I
actually he's very much namaste.
What I'll say though is I think I actually find it very much similar to Luke Cage's Mariah Dillard, the villain of the end villain, because Cottonmouth was the initial villain, but then his cousin becomes the real villain. She is like next level villain, like one of my favorite villains in Marvel. I think the same with Joy Meacham happens in Iron Fist, the sister, and she was I actually really thought she was great. And Davos was interesting to a degree as well, I will say. And that actor, I forget his name off the top of my head, has gone on. He did Doctor Who after that. He was the Master in Doctor Who. So the show wasn't bad. I don't think it's done badly for people's careers who were in it.
I'd be interested to see how all these creatures connect, how all the shows will connect, and will they bring back anyone else? Like you said, if they do end up bringing back Jessica Jones and the Sons of Kilgrave, okay, well that'll be really interesting because we have years of unknown of what Kilgrave did, even after spoiler alert for Jessica Jones, even after his neck is snapped. Which is another thing in the trailer, like the amount of broken bones and bodies we already saw on our main villain. I was like, oh, God.
This is what they said Moon Knight was going to be.
Yes.
This is what they said Moon Knight was going to be. Like, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy Moon Knight. I thought it was a step up from what they'd done previously as regards that sort of like a little bit more gritty, so to speak, like minuscule amounts. But this does feel like the right direction for people want this stuff, right? People, with certain characters, I'm not saying all, and personally, I don't think it should be all, because, if you've got a Captain America movie, you want it relatively sanitized, for example, right? It's a Captain America movie. But like with Daredevil, for example, they know that they have to include a hallway fight scene. They even did it in She-Hulk because they knew that people would want it. And yes, they subverted it slightly with She-Hulk crashing to the ceiling. But like I think they know that there's certain characters deserve this kind of more gritty side, and the comics do it, right? This is the thing, right? Let's not make out that the comics are all sanitized themselves. Some of those comics are pretty adult, even, like, not just regards violence, but some sexual themes, etc. as well. So
absolutely, I think that was one of the huge benefits of it being at a Netflix company as opposed to a Disney company, because while Disney is moving into more adult topics, quote unquote, and they've talked about things like, they talk about one of my other favorite nerd things is Star Wars. They've talked about the horrors of war. They've talked about like the horrors of genocide, like all these different things, but it's always a sanitized version of it. Like you never see.
I think Andor changed that for Star Wars, though. Sorry, just as a little bit.
I think that's a big piece of like they add in revolutionary talk, and they add in this piece of like, hey, united together. That's great. And there's aspects of it where like, you're going to see characters die, but it's not to the same level of impact where you see entire communities get wiped out. You have a bit in Rogue One, but you didn't really care about Jedha all that much when it gets
because it's you haven't met anyone there really, and the people that you did meet there, you actually just left with, So
right, but I do hope that like as they even in the first season of Daredevil, like the advantage of having Netflix versus Disney, one of the first scenes that we see with Karen Page is literally just her taking her top off and staying in like Matt's apartment. And you see like a pretty good amount of like sexual content between Matt and like a lot of the beautiful ladies in
Claire
my God, Rosario Dawson.
Well, that's what I was going to say as well. I wonder if she's in with Disney at the moment because she's doing Ahsoka for Star Wars, right? But I'm wondering if potentially you could see Claire come back in some way or form, because she was with Luke at the end of season 2. Well, sort of with Luke. They kind of split at the end of season 2, but she was with Luke Cage for a while. So all these potential thoughts for different characters that could pop up. It almost would feel bad if you didn't include Claire, because she was the character, right? She was like she was Nick Fury to the Netflix shows, right? Like she was like bringing them all together like bit by bit, right? But yeah, I don't know. It's it's going to be
It is
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's going to be.
I
Sorry.
no, I was gonna say I am interested to see how they also bring back Vanessa in there because again, that's the main
Yes.
reason why Fisk is not revealing Daredevil's identity because he knows if I do this, then Matt Murdock is going to put away my wife in the prison,
Yeah,
and I
but
won't be able to stop it.
I think that's one of my favorite things about it because I think Islet Zareh, who plays Vanessa in this, is a really good Vanessa, and I think that's why I was so aggrieved when they were doing the previous version because they were going to bring in another character that was going to be a Vanessa essentially. But I think she did so well at portraying that character, especially in the moments where you still believed she was free of Fisk's work, but you could tell that she was condoning it in a way. And those scenes where she like was basically you could see her kind of slowly descending to telling him to basically keep doing what he's doing, like they were watching the city burn together. So like it's going to be very interesting to see their relationship in this new form as kind of like the mayor and his wife,
Yes,
and see how that kind of plays out.
and I will admit that is one piece where I'm glad that they include the mob wife kind of trope in it. It was a little bit Breaking Bad for me in the way that like, oh, okay, like the wife's separate from this. We're gonna spend a few seasons like, oh no, the wife's actually darker than we expect her to be.
Yeah.
Like that was that huge buildup because again, up until that point previously, she knew about some pieces of it in previous comics or in like previous shows. I think the biggest throw for me was Into the Spider-Verse, which I'm pretty sure came out relatively close to the first few seasons of Daredevil.
Yeah.
Had shown her as like, no, I don't want anything to do. Like me and my son don't want anything to do with your criminal activity. So it also shows there's a bit of divide into okay, is Vanessa in on the criminal organization or is she out? So it really was an interesting way to play the character. I think it's a bit overdone, but again, that's just my own personal
But what I will
opinion.
say, I will say is that I think Netflix wrote very complex female characters compared to a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe at large. Because if you look at each show, you have, I mean, Jessica on her own is a complex, interesting character, but in Jessica Jones's show, you have Trish, the sister, and the mother as well. The mother is an abusive mother who.
Yeah.
But even that end scene with the mother, I don't know if you remember in season 3 of Jessica Jones, she actually gets killed.
Yeah.
But it was in a horrifying way, and Jessica actually really like wanted to be there to save her and couldn't, and so those were very good complexities in their way. And then if you look at Luke Cage, again, Mariah was a very interesting character. Claire is also an interesting character too. Misty, another interesting character. In terms of how she kind of changes as the season goes on. And then, Daredevil, we've talked about them. Karen, we've talked about. Vanessa. And then even Iron Fist with Joy. Not so much with Colleen. I think Colleen could have done with a bit more of a story, personally. I feel like it was kind of like things were happening to Colleen rather than her doing them, if you know what I mean. But
the best thing she got was like that background of, oh, guess what, I'm a martial arts teacher.
And like,
okay,
I'm part
great.
of the hand, but her being part of the hand initially, it felt like something that was done to her rather than something she had chosen. And so like but I mean, even look at the Defenders show as well. I actually really, I know it wasn't like super like well received, but I actually really liked Sigourney Weaver in that as like this
she
the
was
leader of the hand,
fantastic,
so to speak.
Yeah,
it was quite interesting. It was really interesting to see her in in a Marvel show and kind of do something that was elevated, but like it was still grounded. You know what I mean? Like it still felt like you were playing like a typical character.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I think that's the benefit of Marvel is that you can blend just the normal everyday grittiness of like DC, but without the god aspect of it.
Yes.
And obviously there's mysticism, like even in season 1 of Daredevil, like there's the black guy, right? They explore that further as seasons go on and in different shows, and you could tell that they have groundwork for this. As for the complexity of the female characters, starting out, I don't think a lot of them did have much complexity beyond what their roles were. But after Jessica Jones came out, because that was a full, mind you, a full writing team of women. I think there was one guy on that writing team. So that really emphasized, oh, these are lived experiences of actual women. And they gave Karen an episode for her backstory of like, oh, she was always a people pleaser because her mom died of cancer, and then like all this other stuff that like
she got better as the seasons went on though. Like if you look at like was it season 3? I think. In fact, I think the turning point for her, one of the scenes I think is one of the most interesting in the show, is when her and Wesley are sat down at the table, and he's saying, "You won't shoot the gun," and she does. And I think that sets that literally carries through the rest of the show, right? It stays right until season 3. In fact, I don't even think it's even mentioned in season 2, and it comes back and haunts her in season 3 to a degree.
Yes, that is her, because again, that's a big part of why Fisk wants her dead, and why Bullseye is going after her doggedly. And that's where I do appreciate, because in season 3, that was one of the episodes I watched last night specifically because I thought, okay, this is going to be a big talking point.
Yeah.
She has a backstory, and she was a drug dealer, she was a drug addict, she was a family person. Like she has all these complexities in her, and now she's also a daughter who's been kicked out of her family, and now she's made a new one. So it was good that they did develop them over time. Yeah. I wish they did that a little more for Claire, even across all the shows that she did.
Yeah, because it was
she did feel more like it's like Stanley. You have to have him in all the things, and he has a role to play. Like she had more of a role to play than Stanley's cameos.
Yes,
obviously.
I know what you mean. I know what you're getting at though.
But it's definitely one of those where like I wish I could see more of her beyond. Oh, I'm stitching up a hero.
Yes.
Oh, I'm stitching up another hero.
I think they did that a little bit with her Luke and Luke in that relationship, but like I think it would have went further if there was a season 3 of Luke Cage, right? Because like you could see where they left off, because she had he was running that club, she walks in, he won't see her, and she leaves. And that would be a big point of season 3, except it didn't get there, of course.
That is the downside, because it was such a good show.
Yeah, it was. Another one that I just thought of there as well that was really interesting. Did she die in the end? I can't remember. Matt's mother?
That's one. Oh, no. So she did not die at the end of season 3, but that was one where she did ask, because obviously his priest has been killed.
Yes.
I can't remember the father something. Father Paul. That's what it was.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, Father Paul. So Father Paul gets killed.
Yes.
As a noble sacrifice, and then the last thing that Matt hears him say is "forgive us." And you're thinking in that moment, like, okay, who does he need to forgive? And then recognizing, oh yeah, now his mom's the one that's going to take up that mantle of the spiritual advisor, because that's the big thing. Charlie Cox, Matt
Charlie Cox
is a big old fucking Catholic. Like, that is his thing.
His sin, or his kind of Catholic guilt is kind of the thing that motivates him, right?
Which God never meet Ghost Rider. He will burn so quick.
Yes.
But yeah, I think she's still alive at the end of season 3.
Right,
now I don't know if they discussed that in any of the other shows that like, oh, Matt's mom died. I don't think they did.
No, I don't think so.
But she was a really interesting character, because even developing her backstory of why she left broke my heart, because I'm like, oh, that's postpartum depression. As a therapist, like, by the way, everyone, hi, I work as a therapist. Watching that paralyzation that she had was really heartbreaking. I think it was really sold in such a short time. Like, it was 2 scenes. One scene, he's crying in front of her. Husband Jack comes in, says, "Yes, what's wrong with you?" Next scene, church comes and like takes her away, and then there's an understanding here of like, hey, we're gonna make sure she gets better. We're gonna make sure all these other things, and she does, and she starts taking care of kids, and that feeds into Matt's like, why weren't you there for me? And at the end, he's like, you know what? May this all happen for a reason. That whole mystical, like, God has a plan kind of thing, which really builds into his character as a Catholic. Because, goodness knows you got guilt and you got God's plan. That's what you got as a Catholic.
Yeah. But no, I think, whether or not she shows up in season 4, I think she will be referenced in some way or be relevant. So they're clearly, sorry, I said season 4, I mean Born Again, of course, but you know what I mean.
It's season 4.
It's season 4. But I think the thing is what's clear, and I think what's good, is they have clearly, everything they're doing is intentional to the old show, right? Because, like, again, Benjamin is there, Punisher is there, Fisk is there, Vanessa, they clearly have decided the best way for this show to go is to honor what's come before in like the most succinct terms, because the fact that they were even considering doing something different really irritates me, actually, because it's just like, why would you want to create a cinematic universe And I know the shows were under a different person at the time, and I understand that there's a lot of there was internal politics and even the Netflix politics as well. But you've already started this, just continue it. People want that.
Yeah.
People asked for Save Daredevil for a reason. It was to save that show. It wasn't to save a new Daredevil. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how any of these characters bring back or are reconnected. Because I do wonder. I know they buried Elektra, again, spoilers for Defenders. Yeah. They buried her underneath the circle building, right? Mm-hmm. Not the circle.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. The big building that they collapsed in order to resolve the plot.
Yeah.
But she had already died in season 2 of Daredevil. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if they're going to bring her back again. Is there going to be any memory loss? Is there going to be anything that ties into who any of these new characters will be? It'll be really interesting to see, because I also wonder, okay, if we're going to go with the mutant route or if we're going to go with the Inhuman route, who has trained this person in order to consider these other options?
Yeah.
Just because there's just so many directions in which to go.
Yeah, I mean, they're also already filming. Well, will be filming season 2 by the time season 1 is coming out. So that's interesting as well, because that means they clearly have a storyline beyond one season, which is I expected with Daredevil anyway. There's certain shows you can tell are going to be more than one season, just like Loki. And I think this show is always going to be more than one season. But what I think is also going to be interesting is, and I think White Tiger is a bit of this, like how they're going to connect it to the wider universe going forward as well, because you can connect it to what's come before. That's great. But how are you going to weave Daredevil into the grand tapestry of the wider cinematic universe now? Because it's not like, oh, we're going to reference the story. They are part of that story now, if you know what I mean. Fisk being the mayor seems like something that's going to be catching the attention of not just Matt. Is it going to lead into, for example, another Spider-Man movie? Is it going to link to that in some way? Or is it going to link to, are they going to bring back some other characters that from the other shows? Or how is that going to proceed going forward? And, not everything has to be about cameos and not everything has to be about that. But I think that's always interesting with Marvel to discuss what's the plan going forward, right? Like the timeline and where we're going,
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see how this all kind of ties in anyway. But on top of that, there definitely has been an odd decline in quality, because again, whenever DC suffers from the same problems, I think. Whenever you're trying to make movies that are relatable to humans, you have to dumb down or weaken your heroes. And here, you never really have to, because you're consistently seeing them getting the fuck beat out of them.
Yes.
Sorry, language.
No, it's fine. It's okay. Don't worry.
You see blood, you see bones, you see stitching, you see, I can hear that my ribs are cracked in the fourth and fifth area, all these different things that really show how human they are. Now, will we see that exact same thing? I don't know. There may be less time for intimate moments. It just depends on what they decide to do moving forward with it. But it'll be really interesting to see how any number of these characters will play alongside each other. I'm really excited to see, again, Matt and Frank come back together again. The gang's all back.
Yeah.
See how they're going to come together with White Tiger, if that's what's going to happen. If not, I could see them throwing, because it's the male White Tiger, not
I mean, a lot of people are aware of the female version of White Tiger, especially because the biggest exposure is from the Spider-Man cartoon show, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that is that I think, if I remember correctly, the female White Tiger is related closely to a Daredevil story where Daredevil takes over the Hand. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go down that route, especially because the Hand's wiped out, but it'll be interesting to see if maybe Matt goes down a darker route this season. This White Tiger somehow perishes, right? Someone else takes up the mantle as White Tiger and comes after Matt, or something akin to that, right? You could have something like that. But also, going back to your other point, because it evoked something in my head, Punisher and Matt don't know, everyone knows who Frank Castle is, but Punisher doesn't know who Matt is that like they didn't realize it was Daredevil, right? He doesn't know that yet.
Yeah, he did. He did.
All right, okay.
Yeah. Because there's a moment wherever he goes back and reflects like red. It's like, oh shit, he knows.
Yeah,
he fucking knows.
Yeah. That's right.
Because again, everybody except for the main villain knows.
Yes.
Every single anti-hero that works with him is going to know at some point. All your friends are going to know at some point. Like Claire was one of the first people to know, which again kind of surprised me that she knew first over Foggy. But that did lead to a nice little, I'm going to call it bitching and whining for Foggy. Like, I know you mean. How long did you know? Did you smell every single time that I could? I mean, could you tell when I lied? Like, it's like, yes, Foggy, I knew when you were masturbating. It's fine.
Oh my gosh, you did not need to say that. Oh my gosh.
But Pat knows when everybody is.
Oh my gosh, stop. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting. You know, the trailer gave quite a bit away, but almost nothing at the same time, right? Yeah. So I think it's going to be one of those ones that we're going to have to wait. It's March that it's coming out, right? March 4th.
Yeah.
So
March 4th or 3rd, somewhere in there.
Yeah, something like that. So it's not long now. We'll see how much goes right, goes wrong, goes well, doesn't. But yeah, I think it's one of those ones where you will. It's going to be interesting because it's sort of like there's two antagonists, and then you got White Tiger, and however White Tiger turns out, whether he's sort of a problem to begin with, and then becomes like an ally. We'll see. But obviously Punisher as well. So you've got a lot of moving parts in this show compared to a lot of the others. So hopefully they get it right.
I'll be interested to see if Karen ended up going with their idea at the end of the season of like, let's form Nelson, Murdoch, and Page. Like, is she actually going to become an investigator for them, or is she going to stick with the newspaper? Because again, you also had that great mentorship that she had with Ben Urich and Mitchell Ellison eventually taking over. So I will be interested to see if they. I think it was really humanizing. It's like, humans exist alongside superheroes.
It was almost like that show that DC tried to do. What was it called? The one where it was just like the insurance people who worked to I think
Damage Control.
No, not Damage Control. It was what was it called?
All right, that's Marvel.
Yeah, what was it called? I can't remember now. It had Vanessa Hudgens in it. Anyway, and Alan Tudyk as well, I think. Anyway, it didn't. I don't think it went long or went powerless. That's it. Yeah. So it kind of reminds me of that sort of angle. It's the idea that even within this show, you've got normal people doing normal things. There's half of the sort of issues in Daredevil season 1 was about I forget the woman's name, but her tenement building.
Mrs.
Cardenas.
Oh. Yes.
Yep. You brought it back to me there.
As Foggy's a girlfriend.
Yes. Yeah.
God, I love racism in the show.
Oh my gosh.
I don't really.
No, I know you don't. I know, but yeah. So I think as long as I hope they have some, I think they will, but I hope they have some like proper lawyering going on it, because like you want a little bit of like the kind of mundane alongside in Daredevil. That's what it is, right? Daredevil's a little bit of both.
Because he's a lawyer, and if they don't give at least one or two good speeches, like what's the point?
Some of his speeches, and like, look, what's one of the most iconic scenes to come out of Daredevil? And it's where Punisher's on the stand, and he's going, no. That's from when he's in his house in Punisher. Sorry, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
No. But But then there's the other one where he's like, I liked it. In fact, I love it, and I do it again, because he was like going. He was basically incriminating himself, wasn't he? But like, there's lots of actually iconic moments that come from not him being in the suit. So I think clearly, if the thing is, it's all about good writing. You can make something that is seen as quote unquote boring not be boring if you write it right. That's fundamentally it.
I think that big piece of that show is really just making sure that we're consistently fighting against corruption. That no matter what, no matter how the system is, because even in season 3, the second to last episode, you think, okay, they've got all this evidence together. They're finally going to get Fisk. They got the FBI agent Nadeem to testify, and like, you've got this stuff, and everyone's going to be just okay. No, they've already got the jury. Fuck, this was an emergency jury. How the fuck did that happen? Like, we don't go too much into that piece, but it really just shows he's got his fingers in everywhere, and that pushes Matt to really consider, what line do I cross? And if you don't have that level of, hey, we're going to work within the law as much as we can, but we also have to tempt Matt to kill.
Yes.
It's the same reason with Batman. You see all the atrocities that villains commit, and he still has to wonder that line of like, is it worth keeping you? I think of the animated Red Hood movie with Jensen Ackles, fucking fantastic acting there, and just that speech of, you think killing's easy? Killing is so incredibly easy, but once you cross that line, you can't stop because it's so fucking easy.
Yeah, I think it's definitely that the Batman formula, right? In that, like, Bruce is also fighting the crime just in a different way, right? I
not
think
investing in the city's infrastructure or anything, and making sure that people can have a base income so they don't have to turn to crime. But that's billionaires for you.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. But like, Daredevil, I think in that way, Daredevil and Batman are a little bit more equivalent because they're constantly working to keep the place safe. But there's a struggle because there will always be someone who fills that void to a degree, right? So
absolutely.
So I think that's the thing.
Power
with
loves a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly what Fisk is doing, right? That's the point of Fisk in this season. He is filling the vacuum as Matt. But
I think that's the other big piece. No matter what you had Fisk doing, because in the first season he's got his own little crime syndicates going around, and then the second season, obviously he's in prison, but he's still running crime syndicates in the city. They're different crime syndicates. Like, that really shows. No matter what, trying to solve this one at a time isn't going to do anything. You really have to fix the systemic problems there.
Yeah, I mean, Hawkeye as well did the same thing as well. Showed that he was even after everything that happened, the blip, etc. Fisk would just start again. He's a little bit of a parasite in that way. So, I'm really excited to see what they do, and I think this is going to be a good year for Marvel. We've got Captain America, which there's a few controversies around it regards certain characters, etc. But I think overall it could come out as a good movie still, in my opinion. Red Hulk is a really interesting character for me. I think Harrison Ford's going to do really well as General Ross. / President Ross. Anthony Mackie really deserves to have his moment as Cap. So I think in that way that's going to be a really good movie. Then we have Daredevil, and then we have Thunderbolts this year as well, which actually I think has snuck up on people because I think people thought that wasn't going to be an interesting movie, and now I'm looking at now people have looked at it and kind of gone, actually this looks kind of fun.
Yeah, you have your good ones, and you have your obviously you had your spots. And I had just recently seen the Rhino costume from Craven, and dear fucking god!
Well, I mean, you saw my episode on Craven, right?
Yeah.
So you know what I think. I think it's better than what they've done in some other iterations. I will say that, but I don't think it's good still.
Yeah, there are some things that are just better in animation, and that one was just. I even thought about like this, but the Amazing Spider-Man Rhino, and I was like, I think I'd rather see more of that character than ever see any of that CGI crap again.
I personally think the best version they've done of Rhino in more recent times is the one that's in the Spider-Man games, because I think it's like a good mix. It's Russian. He's Russian. He has that kind of proper attitude that you have for Rhino, but. He has the mech, but it doesn't look overdone, right? It's not like the one in Amazing Spider-Man. It's a little bit more sensible,
Yeah, and I think that's the advantage of animation is you have so much more room to like be fun with it and like cheat things. But in live action, you really can't. So you have to work within the limitations of like, okay, what kind of fits this grungy, kind of like weird technology is advanced, but also not world. It's.
Well, I mean, Rivals shows that as well, right? Because the skins there's outfits that have been used in the movies that they've made into skins in the game, and they look better as skins in the game than they did in the movies. So I think that's quite funny in a way. But I think
minus the actual neck skin for Penny, because I love Penny Parker. I do. I love the fact that her Venom suit looks actually closer to what they've got in the comics with the sharp edges, and the rest of them are just colors. So that's a whole subject we could debate. Ajax
no. We've debated quite a bit already. We have debated quite a bit already. We're just coming up on 50 50 minutes. Tater, thank you for joining me for this one. It's been really fun, actually. Nice riffing some ideas, seeing what people think, what you think about this, but hopefully seeing what other people think as well. So thank you guys for listening / watching. If you did enjoy, let us know what are your thoughts on Daredevil, and we'll be back soon for, is the Spider-Man show coming up by next week, or is that the week after? It's the week after. Never mind. We'll talk about that when it comes out, though, so keep an eye out. Right, guys, thank you so much for joining. As always, I'll see you later.